Hello everyone, welcome to the first session of the week. So my name's Harry and I'm going to be running through some of the basics of Business Central. So nothing too complex. We're really going to go over personalisation. So we're going to look at personalising the role centre and personalising the chart of accounts. We're going to look at some keyboard shortcuts to make your life a little bit easier in Business Central. Then we're going to look into some filters and sorting out data using date filters. And then we're going to finish off with the basics of the general posting setup and the dimension setup and how they are used within the system. So quite basic stuff, but it's always good to start off with the basics. If you've never really used a system before or you're just starting to use it, then hopefully some of the topics in this video will help you out. So to start off with, we're going to look at personalizing Business Central. So Business Central it's a system where you can pretty much personalize any page, any list to however you want it to be. So it can be as complex or it can be as basic as you want. So we're going to start off by looking at personalizing the chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts starts off as standard as a very complex view. So you tend to have a lot of columns on it. You've got a scroll bar. This is still quite basic because I've previously removed some, but a lot of occasions you don't really want to see all of this. You just want to keep it very simple. So I'm going to show you how to remove columns and add them back in on a page like the chart of accounts, on a list page. So what I mean by list page, obviously anything where it's lists down the values. So your sales documents, your purchase documents, obviously they're classed as list pages, because you've got each line one by one with a different entry in it, with your columns at the top. So to personalize a page, if we go to the My Settings cog at the top and then go into Personalize, it will then change our view slightly. So we've got a red line which shows the location of the section we're personalizing, and we get little red triangles. That is the personalize option menu or the action menu. So we can click on that and we can do things with that. So we can move it, hide it, set freeze pane. So all we're doing to start off with are adding fields in. So we're just going to add and remove fields. So if we press add field, we can see all the columns that are available to be able to add on this section here where this red line is. So because this is a list page, this is the only section we can change, we can add or remove. So we want to hide the general product posting group, general business posting group, general posting type. So we want to hide them. So we're just going to press the little red triangle and press hide. And again on here and there, we want to remove totaling. So we're going to have this as basic as possible. And then we're going to move balance date. So we've now got 6 simple columns. These two are pretty much standard, and obviously you got your however you want them to have. So I'm just going to keep it as income balance and account category, then net change and balance. So we've got no scroll bar now, so it's obviously all in one view, all in one shot. When you remove fields, it automatically changes the column width, so how it thinks it should be. So for example, it's changed the name of it, so make it a little bit longer. But we can change them ourselves if we really wanted to by just going to the edge of each column and dragging. So we're going to drag that one that way. So I've made income balance bigger and name smaller. So you can make them whatever size you want to make it look as simple or complex as you really want. So it's entirely up to you. You're only changing this for your screen. You're not changing it for anybody else's. So now if we press the cross on there and press done, that is now personalized. So this is now a very basic view to how we want it to be set up. So that's as simple as removing columns. But we've realized we want to get those columns back. So we're going to go back onto personalize. So we can either clear personalization. So what this does is this will clear all the personalization on this page. So if we press clear personalization, we can choose which ones it has, because obviously it's a list page. It's only to do with filling fields, columns, and parts. And what that will do is that will add all the fields back in that has been previously removed. So this is now as standard how the chart of accounts was set up on this company. Or if we really wanted to do it one by one, we could just go back onto add field and drag and drop. So when you drag and drop, you can see a red line comes. So what that means is you're basically putting that column where that red line is. So if we want to put it next to net change, drop it there, and the system will automatically work out the column widths to make sure that it looks acceptable. So the chart of accounts is quite obviously a big page, so it does take a little bit of time to sometimes add it in, but that's as simple as adding in columns and removing columns. So very simple process. Now we're going to look at personalizing the chart, the role center. So the role center is quite personalized anyway to what your company role is. So this is obviously my company, so it's just a sandbox that I've got that I do testing in, or I do some of my PowerHour videos in. So I'm down as a business manager. So if I go into my settings, I'm down as a business manager. So I can pretty much see everything. So this is a standard what a business manager can see. So I'm just going to go on to personalize again. I'm just going to clear. So there's no personalization, which is fine. So that's one thing you can also check if there's been any personalization beforehand, you'd have the option to clear it. So this time on the role center page, you can see it's slightly different. So you've got different sections that we can personalize. So these have all got big squares on them, or big rectangles around them, and within them, each section has its own little personalized options. So this is obviously a small list page within this section. You've got tiles that you can change. You can drag and drop into tiles, and each part has its own action menu. So it means you can personalize that individual part, to hide it, to move it, whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to show you on this activities section here. So because we're in it and we've got the red rectangle around it, that means we're personalizing it. So we don't have to click anything in it. It just means the mouse has to be physically inside that section. So you can see it's got a triangle associated with the big section, and if we wanted to hide it or move it, we can do so, but we're not going to do that. And again, for each individual part within this, so we want to move the sales invoices. So you can press that, but all you have to really do is drag and drop. So again, you've got the red line, which outlines where you're going to put this tile. So we're just going to randomly put a sales one next to approvals, just for show. So we've got that there. But then we really want to get rid of one of these tiles and we want to make it into just a standard figure. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag the figure up to the top, and now that will show up here. So because we have a tile section in the middle and we have just standard figures at the top, that's where we can interchange, we can swap them. So I'm going to move that one up here, and that will space it out as it has spaced out all of them before, but we want to set sales this month down here, and now that's going to add a tile. So quite a handy and nice feature to use. If you like tiles, you can just keep dragging and drop, keep using tiles, but you can obviously personalize it to whatever you want to view. So if you don't want to see all these things, you can basically just swap and change. We want to get rid of the credit control activities, so we're going to hide that, and then it will tell you that it's currently hidden. And again with that one, so if we press done now, those two immediately go, and we can see that we've got sales this month tile here, and we can click on that, which will then open up the sales this month list page. So the role center is very personalizable, so you can change it to whatever you want to view, but obviously it goes off what your user role is within Business Central. So because I'm a business manager, I can see everything within Business Central, and it's all done via the settings, the cog, and then personalize. And then on each section, if there were any fields you can add in, press fields and it will show up on here. And again, if you really wanted to clear personalization, press all, yeah, and it immediately change all the personalization that we have done on this page. And we're back to see those two, these two column sections back. So very straightforward to do. You can't do anything wrong with personalizing, so you can't delete anything. All you're doing is hiding it from the view, and you can always get it back. So with personalizing, what I say to clients is just have a play around with it, make your own views how you really want to use it. I see a lot of people's screens quite basic because they only want to see what they need to see, or some people have it very complex by having everything you need, so you've got it all in one place. So that's personalizing, very straightforward to use, and it's such a great feature within Business Central. So I would definitely recommend using it if you don't already. So the next thing we're going to look at is some keyboard shortcuts within Business Central. So especially during this lockdown, obviously everyone's working from home, there are some quite handy shortcuts which makes navigating through Business Central a little bit easier. Some of you might not have seen before, or some of you have heard of but have forgotten them. So I'm just going to go over 5 ones that I use quite often, and show you kind of what they use for and how to do them. So I'm going to do this on a sales invoice, just because it's got everything on there that I need. So I'm just going to go on to a new one. Right, so the first one, especially for adding data into a document, for example. So if you press the Alt and the down arrow on a field that has a list associated to it, it will bring up that list immediately. So you don't have to click around, you have to use your mouse, you can just search for which one you want and then press enter and it pulls it through. So that's just a quick shortcut for not using your mouse. And that can be on any field which has a drop down box associated, a lookup value associated with it, or even a date associated to it as well. So for the posting date, for example, if we press Alt down arrow, it will bring up the calendar, and then we can select the date we want. So Alt down arrow, and it brings up the calendar. So it doesn't save that much time, but if you are lazy like me, and sometimes like to just have your both hands on your keyboard, just a simple Alt down arrow brings up the whole list associated to the page. So quite a nice little feature. Then obviously you've also got the facts box pane on the right side. So most of this, I tend to kind of collapse this when I'm creating a sales invoice or a document. But if you wanted to add a quick note to this and you don't want to have to open the fact box, all you press is Alt and O, and that will bring up the note box, and we can just add a note, test, and then that note is added to it. Excuse me. And we can see on the attachments we have one note and it's on there. So you don't have to click around, you don't have to have your fact box open. We can literally just go Alt O, Harry 1, OK. And now we can see there's two attachments and it's there. So again, just quite a quick thing for adding notes to specific documents. Just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. The next one opens up another page from wherever you want. So if we press Alt and T, this will open your settings page. So again, it just stops using your mouse. You can just get your settings and you can just quickly choose what you want, and it's just basically accessing your settings page. And then to access your role explorer, so to see what your role can see and all the pages associated to it, if you press Shift and then F12, it takes a little bit longer to load up, but it shows this is basically the Explore All list that you've got on Business Central. So it shows you your user role, and then it also has every page associated that you can access. So then if we wanted to go on to customers, we click on that and it takes us to the customers page. As simple as that. So it's just a quick way to really access the page you really want to. It's probably easier for pages that you can't remember the name of, and the search function's obviously not bringing up what you want. So Shift F12 and it takes you to that page. So quite a nice little shortcut. And then finally, one that I use a lot, especially for support queries, is the page inspection. So this has been brought into Business Central for a few months now, but it's still quite a new feature that I know that a lot of people don't really understand or realize yet. So if you used Dynamics Nav beforehand, this is the same feature what used to be on Dynamics Nav, where you can inspect the page and inspect a specific line to see what data is on that line. So we're going to inspect this sales invoice, for example. So if we press Control, Alt and F1, it takes a little bit of time to load up because it's pulling all the data from this sales invoice. So we can see it working. So we can see here, now we've got the page inspection box. So this is what we use a lot for, like I said, for supporting queries. So we've got what page it's on. So this is the specific page in the background, so it's page 43. What table this specific information is related to, so it's a sales header table. Then we've got all the lines here that are with information in it. So a lot of them are blank because we've not filled them in, but you can see what information is being pulled down. So if there's an issue on a specific sales invoice, immediately we would check the page inspection. We would see if there's any extensions related to it, to this page, or if there's any filters on the page as well. So it's a handy function to see what tables you can have on here. So what tables you can have on the list, on the lines, what fields, sorry, and also if there are any issues, what information has pulled down and what hasn't, and then it really can help you understand where the issue lies. So that's really the main one I use. But there's 5 simple keyboard shortcuts, so we'll close that and I'll go through them quickly again. So you've got Alt down arrow, brings up a lookup list, or the list that's associated to a specific field. Alt O, adding a note to this. Alt T, my settings page. Shift F12 brings up your Role Explorer, and then Control Alt F1 brings up page inspection. So don't worry if page inspection or Role Explorer takes a little bit of time to load up. Obviously it takes longer the first time, but then it gets a little bit quicker the more times you do it, and then that brings your page inspection up. So nice features, nice quick shortcuts to use. I use them quite often, so yeah, hope you can get some use out of them. So on the sales invoice itself, so I just want to go through, or any document that is, so purchase documents, sales documents, anything that you have to input lines on. So now I'm just going to go through some quick ways of adding dates in, and some quick formulas when adding information in your lines. So dates, there are a few ways you can add dates onto a document. So we're going to remove the due date and we're going to keep it blank. So the first one, if we wanted to put in the work date on this box here, so the work date being the date within the settings, so the work date being whatever is outlined on here. So this can be changed by you no matter as many times as you like. This is the work date. So the minute it's set as a 6th. So if we put a W in there and then tab off, that will immediately pull through the work date. So we're going to change the work date to the 10th of May. And again, if we do W, we can see 10th of May. So that will always pull down whatever work date is selected in my settings. So quite handy to know if you just really want to quickly just put in the work date. And then you've also got system date. So the system date is whatever date's on your system itself. So whatever date is on your computer calendar and is selected, that is classed as your system date. If we wanted to select that, all we do is press T and then tab off. That will immediately pull through the system date. So today, for me, it's the 12th of May. So that is the system date. So W, work date, T, system date. So always remember that. Just a quick way of getting one or the other into the box you require. And then you can also type in a specific day. So if you know the day itself and you can't be bothered to go and search for the dates, so the due date is going to be next Thursday. If we put in THU, tab, that'll work out that Thursday is the 7th of May. And if we click on that, we can see Thursday's the 7th of May. Or if we put Tuesday, 5th of May. So obviously that's going off your work date that is set in the, and it's also going off your posting date as well. So bear that in mind if you are using days. Make sure you've obviously got your right work date set to whatever day you're working from. So that's just a quick, simple, very straightforward dates, how to add dates within a specific document. So W for work date, T for system date, and then you can also add in a specific date itself, as in the day of the week, if you really want to do that as well. Then you've also got, within Business Central, you've got different calculations and formulas that you can use. So, for example, on the line itself, if we know a quantity, we don't know the exact amount, but we know two amounts that we've got to work out. So instead of just going through your calculator, we can just type in, so we've got one set of 23, and then if we add 82, simple calculation, and then tab off, that'll work out that. So I've got to set something first. So then if we try this again, 10, add 34, tab off, 44, and that's as simple as that. So there are 4 simple formulas within Business Central for any field that has a editable number value in it. So quantity, amounts, anything where you can physically edit it. So obviously you've got the add, you've also got subtract, so 44 minus 21, tab off, works it out for you. Then you've got multiply, so 23 multiply star 24, works it out straight away for you. And then finally you've got the divide, so you can probably guess what the divide is, which is going to do 243 divided by 3, 81. So quite handy. It saves you having to get your calculator up in your computer or use your phone or whatever. If you only know specific amounts, you don't know the total, then just use the calculator function within the line to work it out. So quite a nice little trick that I know some people don't know of. I definitely didn't know of it straight away. It took me a little time to really realize it was there. But now I use it quite often to work out even simple calculations that I should probably know. So yeah, so obviously add, you've got your plus and minus for add and subtract, then you've got your star for multiply and the / for division. So quite handy to know, quite handy to use. So I just thought I would share that feature within Business Central. So the next thing I just want to cover is a bit about dimensions. So dimensions as a whole they're really used to categorize financial data. But then you can also use them to analyze data and restrict data to specific departments or specific dimensions. So they are quite important, and they're quite a huge feature with some big capabilities within the system as well. So I'm just going to go through the basics about how to create them, where you can set default dimensions, how to use the dimension values, and then how to filter in the chart of accounts to a specific dimension to analyze entries. So I will be doing a more in detailed session on dimensions as part of my PowerHour program, but at the minute just go through the basics on this session. So to start off with, if we go on to dimensions, So this is the main page for dimensions. So this is where all my company's dimensions are held. So as standard for a Kronos company, you tend to find activity, cost center, customer and department are standard codes for it. But you can create as many or as few as you wanted. They are there, like I said, to categorize your data and to break down your data. So, for example, department. So if we press on this one and then go to dimension values, these are all the dimension values that there are linked to this one specific department code. So these are the values that we would enter on a sales document, a purchase document, or if you wanted to set a specific one as default on a customer or an item, for example. And I'll show you how that's done at a later date in this video. So, and it's exactly the same as with dimensions, is you can have as many values as you like. So there is no restriction at all. So if you wanted to set up a new one called, I'm just going to call it finance, just as an example, now that's created. If you want to put a block on that line or that value, all it is a simple tick box. So that blocks you from posting any documents that has a dimension value of FIN as the code. So that will then be blocked, and it wouldn't allow you to post that specific entry. So that is the dimension values. It's very simple, very straightforward, and that's kind of how to create dimensions. It's just a new line on this table here, and that creates it into the system, into your Business Central system. So once you've got them, you need to then identify them as global and shortcut dimensions, and this is done via the general ledger setup. So if we search for general ledger setup, there is a whole dimensions fast tab on here. So you technically have you can have 6 shortcut dimensions and 2 global dimensions, and then the first 2 shortcut ones are related to the 2 global. So the difference between global and shortcut dimensions, well, it's really global dimensions are transferred into the entry tables, and they are really used as flow filters. So they're really used as filters for XML ports, specific analysis reports, batch jobs, and you can only have 2 sets. So obviously you need to make sure that the global dimensions you choose are the ones you're going to be using the most. And then you've got shortcut dimensions. So these are filtered into transferred into the specific tables. So they're not part of a flow filter, but they are used to analyzing reports, and they're used on specific lines of documents. So they're fields on journal and document lines, and you can have an extra 6 of these. So you can have in total 8 dimensions, 2 global and 6 shortcut. So that's really the difference between the two. These 2 are used as filters, and I'll show you how to filter down to one specific dimension in a minute. And then the shortcut ones are really used for reporting, and I'll show you how to get onto a specific report at the end. So next thing, what we're going to do, we're just going to add a dimension to a specific line. So we're just going to add a department code dimension to this line here. So this first line, we're going to add department code of IT. We're just going to make it 10 of these, and that's IT. Fine. And then we're going to post this. If it will let me. Yep, so that's posted. So now we can then go on and check this specific dimension in the chart of accounts. So in the chart of accounts, for example, we can then filter the totals by the specific dimensions. So this is what having the global dimensions is about. You can filter the values down to specific ones. So you've got the customer group, which is one of the global ones, and you've got the department group, or department filter. So if I press on department filter and then filter it down to IT, we should now see our general ledger entries that have been posted from that one invoice that we just created. So if we click on to 10,200 GL account, we can see the general ledger entries. And if we just inspect this page like I did before, Control Alt F1, we should be able to see when it loads up. Let's just try that again. So for some reason that's not working. But this is filtered to that department code. So we can personalize it in. Global dimension 2. And it's crashed on me. They always love a good technical difficulty. So if we just personalize this page again, department code, so it's now pulled up correctly. Department code IT. So we can then see department code of IT. We can click on that, and that would filter. If we had more than one entry, it would filter down to the department code of IT. So that's how the filters within the specific dimension values works. So I know there's a bit of a technical glitch, so I do apologize for that. But then we can go back onto the chart of accounts and we should be able to see, put our filter back on. Ooh. And then there's our other entries as well. So we can go on to 20,100 GL account, and we can see department code IT, posting date of the 4th. So then that's how you filter to your specific dimension. So not only can you have dimensions on lines, but you can also set default dimensions to specific customers, vendors, items, even the GL account itself. So if we just go and reset filters, and we're just going to click on income services. So on here, wherever it was, account, then dimensions. So in here, you can set up a specific combination, which is basically like a rule for this GL account. So it has to follow this rule. So dimension code department. This is where you can also have your shortcut dimension codes. And then dimension value code, we're going to have, so for example, if you left that blank and then had value posting as code mandatory, it would mean that whenever you have select a department code, whenever you do anything for this GL account, sorry, it has to have a department code as mandatory. And then again, same code, you would have to select one on here. So this would mean that if you're doing anything with this GL account, that it has to have this code IT as the department dimension code. If it didn't, it wouldn't let you post it, and you'd get an error message. So you can set as many rules like that, like this, or again, no code. So if you leave the dimension value code blank and set this as no code, then this would mean that you don't have to have a code, or you're restricted to not have a code for the department dimension for this GL account. So it's setting restrictions, setting boundaries, and setting defaults so that whenever you are posting to a specific GL account or a specific item or a customer example, so I'll show you on items and customers. So if I just go onto the Athens desk and then remember where it is, actions, item, nope, navigate, item history, dimensions. And then again, you can set exactly the same on here. So for this specific item, if we had a customer group, large, so we only want it for large businesses, and it has to be the same code. That means that anything that we are posting using this item has to have the large dimension value code. So it's restricted to that. So it prevents any errors, any posting of documents with the wrong dimensions. So you're basically setting, like I said, restrictions and combinations for how you want it to work. So these are the default dimensions for specific areas of the system. And again, I'll just show you on where it is on customers. So HJ Clothing Limited. Customer dimensions, and exactly the same on here. So we want to set this department and set the value as IT and same code, or we want there to be a code mandatory for the department dimension code. We just keep it as blank on there, and that means it's definitely code mandatory for this customer. So we have to put in a department dimension code for this customer. So you cannot leave it blank. So that's really how you set up a default for dimensions. And then from there, so once you've got your dimensions and you've played around with them, there's also loads of built-in reports on Business Central. So if you type in dimensions, you've got loads of built-in reports on here. So you can select what dimensions you're using, what column layout you're using. So these are the standard column layouts that are set within Business Central. Then you set a date filter. So this is just the total ones, and you've got one for entries as well. So, and this is where your shortcut dimensions come into play. So if you do make the most of shortcut dimensions, then you would select them in, I can get it to it, a detailed one. So then you'd select it in include dimensions, and you would add more dimensions in there. So you'd include your shortcut ones in there, adding a date filter, and then this might not bring anything up. No, but this is how the report would look. So it would give you a detailed report of your dimensions. So that's really dimensions, the basics. Like I said, I will be going into more detail on dimensions at a later date as part of my Power Hour, but I just wanted to go on the basics of how to create them, where they're used. Also, one other feature on dimension values. For example, if we go on to customer group, and then on here, if we go into actions, functions, where used, this tells us where these are set as default dimensions. So we've just set this one as the item one just 2 minutes ago, but it's also set as a job default dimension as well. So this is how you track where the dimension values are being used. So where it's being used as a default dimension. So bear that in mind if you are going to be using the default dimension function. But that's really dimensions. So not much else to cover on the basics. I'm just going to go through a bit about posting groups now to finish this video off, and then obviously open to some questions. So posting groups. I just want to go through a little bit about posting groups and how they're used within Business Central, and how they help users from making mistakes. So what are posting groups? Posting groups really, they're there for mapping your customers, vendors, items, resources, all your sales and purchase documents to specific general ledger accounts. So to help the users save time, but also to help avoid mistakes. So if we search for posting group, there are 13 different ones you can have. So we're just going to go through general and VAT, and we're going to look at the business and product posting groups, just the difference between the two. So to start off with general business posting groups. So this is basically who you are selling to and who you're buying from. So it tends to be from a geographical area. So obviously at standard, we've got domestic, EU, export. You can have as many as you like. You're not restricted to a few. You can have as many as you like. But they tend to be, like I said, geographical as standard. But yeah, this is basically who you're selling to or who you're buying from, and that is the business posting group as a whole. And then you've got the general product posting group, and then this is what you are selling or what you're buying. So this is the group of items that you're selling within retail, or for example, or the group of items you're buying within raw materials. So again, you can have as many as you like. There's no restrictions on how many you can have. You've just got to obviously link them to the business posting groups, and I'll show you that in a second. And then to finish off the general posting groups, there's a page called General Posting Setup. So this is where all the combinations are held, and it tells you the specific general ledger accounts that are linked to those specific lines, those specific entries as such. So we can see all the COGS accounts, all the specific general ledger accounts that you would normally select, that these entries would go to, and would group in within that general ledger account to map these posting groups to these accounts. So we can see we've got the general business posting group column here and the general product posting group here. So for all three, we've got retail, services, 0, and then we've also got retail and 0 as a blank posting group. So if we were using posting groups on our sales and purchase documents, we would need to make sure that we have domestic set as the business one, but then one of these three set as the product one. We couldn't use anything other than that. That would then come up with an error message. So that would come up with an error message saying business general posting setup does not exist. So the most common error message we would normally get would be general posting setup does not exist for domestic and something else, raw materials or whatever. So then you would either change the posting group you're selecting, or you can create a new link between domestic and raw materials. So that's down to you to have your links correct. So say, for that example, we're going to select one for domestic, and we're going to select one for raw material. So now that creates a link. Then we would specify which accounts we want to have for that specific setup, and then whenever we use that setup for sales documents, purchase documents, it will then link and flow to the GL accounts that we select. So that's how the posting setup is really used. It's very simple, and then you can filter using these setups on the chart of accounts. I just want to quickly go over the VAT setup as well. So it's exactly the same in terms of the principle and how it's used. So VAT posting setup. So again, it's exactly the same, but we've got a little bit more information and a little more detail on here. So VAT business posting group. So again, we've got exactly the same three. So that is really the who, and then obviously you've got your VAT product posting group, and that's obviously the type of the percentage that you're going to be using. So obviously standard has a VAT percentage of 20%. So on here you would select the product posting group, have a description. It would have the identifier which is associated with the product posting group, which would pull down a specific percentage. So exactly the same as the general setup. If you are using that posting setup in terms of your document lines, you have to make sure that you have a combination which is in this table here. If you're trying to use something that's not in this table, it would error, and it would come up with an error saying that posting setup does not exist. So whatever you are using, it has to be on this table here for it to work. And again, exactly the same as general posting setup, all the accounts are linked. So we can see these are all the accounts. So you've got the sales VAT account, purchase VAT account. So they're all linked to this table here. So that's it. That's pretty much the setup in a nutshell. It's very simple on how to use. But then you can also set posting groups as specific default posting groups for customers, items, resources, vendors. So if we go back onto a customer card, so HJ Clothing Limited, we can see in the invoicing tab right in front of us, we've got a posting details section. So this is where we specify a specific group that this customer is going to post to. So we've got general business posting group set as domestic, VAT business posting group set as domestic, customer posting group set as domestic. So that is exactly the same on vendors, items, resources, customers. So you can specify default ones. If this is set up as blank, then it would bypass the customer card, and it would obviously look, if it's an item, it would go on the item. So it's making sure that the combinations match up to the setup table. That is the key point of this, is making sure that everything links back to the setup table. But yeah, that's really everything. I do have a specific PowerHour that I went into more detail on posting groups, that if you do want any more information on that, I can get sent over to you. But as a whole, that's really the basics covered. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll go through them with you. But yeah, hopefully you learned something. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, if you've got any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Perfect. So that we've nearly ran out the hour. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We've got some questions that have been asked throughout that we've been answering as they've been coming in. So the video will be recorded, and it will be on the PowerHour site When I get the recording back, it will be on the SharePoint site. If you don't have access to that, just drop me an email, and I'll make sure I get you the access. Can we personalize for all users? So the answer to that one is yes. Each user can set up their own screen through the personalization. However, if you want to set up a standard group view for a group of users, say accounts or sales, we'd recommend alternative functionality called design, which we'll be doing a video on in a couple of weeks. Can we run filters of the non-global dimensions, if not on the chart of accounts screen, on another screen? So yes, you can do that as well. You can filter the non-global dimensions by searching for dimensions in the search bar at the top of the page, selecting the third option, which is the set dimension filter, and then it will give you the ability to be able to select those. And then the last one, which I believe Harry is just replying to, is can you show an example of an on-screen dimensions error so that we can see how to interpret the error message? What we'll do is we'll send an email out to everyone who signed up to the event with an example of that one, because it's going to be tough to get those error messages in the minute we've got left. If you've got any other questions, pop them in the Q&A now. And if not, then I will let you leave a minute early, and I hope to see you tomorrow for the session that's on your screen now. Me and Harry are going to stick around for a couple of minutes, so if you want to ask any questions, anything Business Central related, just pop them in the Q&A.